Good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Wind Down Fridays with your girl, Arthur. Wind Down Fridays will give us a hug with your girl, Arthur. Erica as your host, and my co-host, Arthur Kim. This is Wind Down Fridays will give us a hug Survivor Story Edition. As you all know, October is Domestic Violence and Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And here at Give a Sister a Hug, we're going to give all our survivors the platform to share their story to help the next survivor or domestic violence lady that's going through right now. So today we have our good friend on, our good friend that's going to share her story, Kristina. Thanks for taking time out your busy day to share with us your story and allowing us to share your story on our platform. So I'm just going to get a mic over to you, Kristine, and you just go with it.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. So backstory to my domestic violence situation, what I've learned in therapy. I've been in therapy twice a week for almost 2 years now. I also have a psychiatrist to help me with my PTSD and anxiety and panic attacks. So my story starts back when I was little, called my mother. My mother is a narcissist. And she of course blames everybody else for her issues. So every guy that I have dated, including my ex-husband, were all narcissists. Each guy that I dated was a little bit worse than the one before. My ex-husband and I, we had been friends since we were kids. And he wasn't what I would call really abusive, but there were moments that definitely define what abuse is within our relationship. So a lot of things happened during the time of our marriage. One was our daughter was raped in high school by another student who was already on what they call, I don't even know what they call it. It's when they have to call in to a probation officer. They just kind of not even
like parole.
Not even parole. He was allowed to be in the school. He was allowed, but he was supposed to be watched by people. So he was already in trouble for another rape case when he raped my daughter. I ended up having to help out with the forensic interview because the camera stopped working right. So I got to see up close and personal what he did to my daughter. So that kind of started the downward spiral of our marriage. And his name is Jesse. So my ex-husband is Jesse. It's going to get complicated. So you got to understand.
Jesse out there quick, Jesse.
We here for it, girl. We here for it.
All right. So my ex-husband is Jesse. My abuser that I'm going to talk about at extent, I'm going to use initials MW.
Okay.
So my ex-husband and I started really falling apart at that moment, and a lot of things transpired from my daughter's freshman year all the way up through into her junior year. At that point, we had lost a really good close family member of mine by suicide, my cousin who I had helped raise. He committed suicide. A couple other family members had passed away. We lost our family pet in a tragic accident, and then we lost my daughter's cat in a very tragic way. So a lot of things had happened. So now we're fast forwarding up to 2017. 2017 was the year that I wish never had occurred. So March, Sylvester passes away, the cat. May, my cousin commits suicide on our wedding anniversary, mine and Jesse's wedding anniversary. I get woke up to going to work, and I had a bunch of missed phone calls, but I was trying to get ready for work. And Jesse calls me from the bedroom saying, Kristine, you need to come here. You need to come here. And I'm yelling at him from the kitchen, like, I'm getting ready for work. What do you want? And he's like, you need to get in here now. And I said, I can't. And at that moment, my 2 children are across the house in their bedrooms getting ready for school. And he yells, Keith killed himself. Now, I don't remember the next, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes. I just remember somehow I made it from the kitchen to the end of the bed and I was on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
No recollection of how I got there. My children are standing in our doorway, bawling hysterically because Keith was like a brother, uncle, cousin to them. And so we were all shocked.
Yeah.
My cousin had suffered from what they call dissociative disorder.
Okay.
And that's what got the best of him.
Mhm.
So that the end of May, we go to Florida for a family vacation with my parents and my brother. And we go to Disney World and we tour Florida, basically. And throughout this whole time, I'm talking to several of my coworkers. I worked in a prison. And I was talking to several of my coworkers. And, there was a whole group of us talking back and forth. And I had become really good friends with Tinsley. And Tinsley and I became very close. Ed was an amazing man. And for quite a while, he was my only friend, father figure, so to speak, throughout most of this 2017 forward. So my husband and I end up splitting. I end up starting to see MW, who was a coworker of mine. We move in together. It all happens rather quickly. And immediately he starts attacking my oldest daughter. Not physically, but verbally to me, because she was a train wreck. I mean, she had been sexually assaulted. We were going to court about every month. They kept pushing court back. He would disappear. Tracking, that's what it is. They were tracking him by phone or whatever. And he would disappear and they wouldn't go after him. And there was a lot of time where she was very afraid. People were threatening her. They were threatening to kill her. Life was very scary for several years. And still for her, it is, because those people are still out there. He's still out there. So MW is verbally attacking her and he's doing it little by little. Now I am still grieving over Keith. I'm now grieving the loss of my family, and he immediately took that and ran with it. He knew at work that issues were happening because he would listen to me and Tinsley talking, because Tins was probably one of my best friends at that time. So he was able to manipulate everything that I was going through, and him being that knight in shining armor that was going to come in and save me. And for the first few months, it was that way. Almost as soon as it started, it ended. So we're now talking this November of 2017. I'm going to start reading my biography that I started to write, because that will probably be easier than me sitting here telling, because I'm going to be all over the place. So I'm just going to start reading that, and we'll go from there. All right. So my life from the moment I started working with MW was January of 17. I was working in a medium level prison in Colorado Springs, Colorado. In January of 2017, I was moved to the DUI unit as a case manager while also working towards my mental health certification. MW became the unit manager of the DUI pod. We had seen each other in previous meetings, but had never really spoken. I worked with a close friend, Ed Tinsley. I'm sorry, I need a moment.
Okay.
My pod. Tins was an older gentleman and had become friends of mine and my family. We spent our breaks and lunches together discussing life's troubles and tribulations. Once in a while, MW would sit with us and overhear our conversations. MW spent a lot of time complaining about how horrible his wife was and how wonderful his other daughter was. MW would show us videos of him and his daughter and pictures of them. Never any that included his wife. MW called his wife Satan, crazy, horrible, mean, etc. We all felt sorry for MW as he pleaded a great case against her. MW even stated he used his password as Satan is her name, saying she would never figure out his passwords. Between January and April of 2017, Tins and I sat outside talking about my personal issues at home, my daughter's sexual assault, loss of our family cat, my marriage troubles, etc. And MW would just sit and listen and chime in how horrible his wife is, how she won't give him a divorce, and how she cheated on him, and what a horrible person she is. Around March of 2017, MW started bringing in donuts to the office for staff. The reason he did that was because I love donuts.
Mm.
I'm a huge donut fan.
Mhm.
Yep. And then putting them on my desk most days. And then once in a while, he would place them on another staff member's desk. I had told Tins about my love for donuts, and he always talked about taking turns bringing in donuts. MW then started asking everyone to go to lunch in order to have staff meetings off grounds and to have a closer working relationship. You see where this manipulation has started.
Yep.
Yep.
MW then started asking me to go on breaks with Tins, and then started asking to go to lunch with me and Tins. Then we all shared our personal cell phone numbers and group text started. In late of March 2017, I got a nasty cold, and MW brought in MW brought in tea, honey, and paper cups and stated he brought these in for a friend who was really sick. I did not put two and two together as we were not friends in my opinion. April 2017, I asked Tins to come outside with me to have a rather personal discussion about something I was dealing with at home. While we were outside talking, I did not notice MW had walked up behind us and was listening to our conversation. This would be the beginning of his more intensified manipulating and love bombing tactics. I was having marital problems and needed a friend's advice who was close to both myself and my husband, Jesse. I was working on my jurisprudence to become a psychotherapist at work. I had a lot on my plate between work and home and was not at all paying attention to what tactics MW was in the midst of. MW then started the flirting with me, knocking papers off my desk, asking for my opinion on matters on the unit, seeking my advice on some of his personal issues about his vehicle, his apartment. He left his wife about 2 years prior, right after his daughter Audrey was born. May 2017 was a disastrous month for me. My life was changed drastically by the sudden death of a very close cousin, Keith. I'm sorry, I need a moment.
Okay.
A brother or a son to me. His suicide was on our 9th anniversary, and I was devastated. I went to work late, a mess. I couldn't stop crying. I hid in the office. I didn't have any more time left to take off due to the court hearings for my daughter and our family vacation to Florida at the end of the month. I was a wreck. MW took full advantage of this. By this time, everyone was texting a lot, just mostly fun texts, but MW had sent me a few personal texts regarding other employees we worked with and his dislike for certain people and to gossip. I, of course, reciprocated. The night before our family vacation was a party for a coworker who was leaving, and we all went to say goodbye. MW was not there. He later told me it was because he didn't want to meet my husband and didn't want to see me with my family.
Oh.
I was not. Side note, oh, sorry, hold on, my computer. So I was not allowed to stay at that. My husband told me I had to leave right away. My husband didn't like me being around other people. So Jesse was very controlling as well. So I don't know how to get rid of this update thing. I'm sorry. Okay. So back to so we went on our family vacation with my husband, kids, brother, and my parents to Florida. I was sending group text with pictures of the sights, etc. in Florida. My marriage was in serious trouble by this time. I was miserable by the fact my husband wouldn't go to family therapy or to seek counseling for himself after our daughter's rape. I felt alone and betrayed by him. By the beginning of June, I was emotionally drained, frustrated, and felt like Jesse wasn't listening to anything I said. We were fighting a lot and tension was very high between us. MW knew there was serious trouble, and he used that by texting me privately and asking how I was doing, if I needed anything, and to let me know he was around if I needed to talk, manipulating me.
Yep.
I leaned on Tins for advice. He was older and had been married and divorced, and his oldest was married with children. So I knew he had a life of experience he could share. MW would go to breaks more often with us and would just sit and listen to us talk. And he would always, of course, discuss how evil his wife is. I was so mentally and emotionally scarred that I didn't see what MW was doing, but I started feeling sorry for him and his situation with his wife. I started texting MW in early June. My daughter's birthday is June 3rd, and we had a party at our house with her friends while my husband and son were at work. I invited MW, who of course showed up with gifts and a card for her. This would be the only nice thing he did for her before he started his hatreds towards her. The next day I found out was MW's birthday. He went and spent the day with his wife and daughter. Sent me pictures of him and his daughter eating out. His wife also there, but not in pictures. MW told me his wife never bought him presents or gave him anything for his birthday or holidays. I later would find cards from her addressed to him for his birthday and anniversaries. This was the beginning of his mounds of lies yet to come.
Mhm.
I told him I hoped he had a great birthday, and he said he already had, as he got to spend it with someone special. I disregarded this until he told me weeks later he meant that he got to spend it with me the day prior. Nothing had happened between us, and I wasn't feeling much for him other than friendship at this point. Over the next several days, my life was about to take a turn that I didn't even see coming. June 8th is my son's birthday, and we took him to get video games and a cake after Jesse and him got off work. I was feeling very upset with Jesse as he was starting fights with both Alyssa and I pretty regularly, and he was becoming more dependent on me for everything. I was tired and depressed. On June 10th, I decided to go hiking with MW at a state park called Helen Hunt Falls. I met him at his apartment, and my daughter and her boyfriend came with, only to leave again. I was alone with MW for the first time. I felt a strange pain in my stomach. I was actually dreading it. My guts told me something wasn't right. I walked into his apartment, and it smelled of rotten garbage and stale, musty air. I noticed on his balcony he had 2 very large bags of trash sitting there. Those bags stayed there until he moved in the beginning of July. We spent the day hiking and getting lunch at Wingstop and taking to Helen Hunt for a picnic. Allie and her boyfriend met us there. By the time we ended our day, Jesse was in a fit of rage, having not gotten a hold of me all day. I was done. I wanted out of the marriage by this point. I left Jesse and went to MW. I fell for his manipulation and love bombing. I was tired, exhausted, and depressed after feeling alone as a parent in the fight for my daughter, loss of Sylvester and Keith, and the lack of support from Jesse in all aspects. I was a mess, and I felt like I didn't have support from anyone. MW fed off these emotions and my feelings. The next few days were filled with Jesse fighting for me to come home, begging me to come home, and then him leaving. I felt torn, but knew our marriage would never change and Jesse would never change. I had MW move in with me July 1. This would seal my fate for the next year and 10 months. MW refused my help with him moving and only had my son help him. MW bought my son clothes, foods, and drinks, took him out to dinner several times, took him to movies. MW was very distant towards Alyssa as she was battling PTSD in her rape case. MW became very aggressive towards Alyssa as she would have frequent bouts of meltdowns, crying and screaming fits. MW started with how awful she is, how spoiled she is, how mean she is, etc. I started believing him and disregarding what I knew she needed, and that was love and attention from her mom. I started drinking again to ease the pain of all the things gone wrong over the past few months and years. I was so depressed and upset with so many facets of life at this point, I wasn't seeing what was right in front of me. My best friend and my cousin Lacey, Keith's sister, who I love like a sister and daughter, came to visit for my 40th birthday in July. Lacey immediately saw through MW. Brooke stayed distant from him and couldn't put her finger on it, but didn't care for him. I was not listening to anyone. I needed therapy, but did not seek help quite yet. MW bought me a new iPod, a necklace, a cake, and iTunes cards for my birthday. MW knew that Jesse had taken my iPod when he left in June and was trying to make up for it. Again, this was his way of manipulating me and love bombing me. I again was not seeing clearly and was overwhelmed with grief and sadness. By the end of July, my son moved back to Iowa to be with my parents as he did not care for MW, as he had conversations with MW that were mean and heartless towards myself, Alyssa, and my family. Ben saw through MW but continued to try to be supportive for me. Allie came back to Colorado after visiting my parents and we tried to be normal, but MW continued to put a wedge between us. Allie moved out and in with friends. I was devastated. I found out years later that MW had told her when I was gone that she was not allowed in the home ever again. Allie came back a few weeks later again when I was not home to grab some of her things, and MW struck her in the face, breaking her jaw. When a dentist took an x-ray of her mouth, he told her this. The next few months, MW continued to nag at me about my family. MW would say they were not supportive. They didn't really care about me. They are selfish, rude. I don't need them in my life. I don't need that kind of abuse in my life, and that my daughter was the devil, evil, and should be committed. I tried explaining to him. Yeah, did you want a question?
I'm just, my mouth is open. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. I tried explaining to him that we have all been through hell the past few years, but he would disregard it. I even said to him on several occasions, I hope this never happens to your daughter because you can be so heartless, and this is the time that children need their parents. MW would backtrack and say yes, but children don't act like this when they are hurting. MW always had excuses for what he meant or said that was horrible towards any members of my family. MW never spoke ill towards my father, as he was aware my father is a police officer and respects him. I didn't put this all together until it was almost too late. There are different kinds of abuse. Physical, which has been the most prominent in the media, movies, TV, news, etc. Mental, not so much information on this, but it is starting to come to light with the little information in the news, media, and movies and internet. I endured mental, financial, and emotional abuse almost from the beginning. MW started by alienating me from my children and family and friends. MW would call me names: fat pig, lazy pig, selfish, crazy, insane, mental case, ignorant, and many, many other names. MW started to downgrade everything I said and did. He started twisting my words. He started playing games with my words, my emotions, and my emotional state. By the end of August 2017, MW had me feeling like my family didn't care about me, didn't like me, and that I was being abused by them. MW started talking about how his mother beat him with a butcher knife, grounded him for the smallest of things, such as not turning lights on fast enough for her. MW told me how he had to protect his sister from her abuse when he was an adult and a police officer in Puerto Rico. MW continued to talk about how awful and evil his wife is, and how his first wife cheated on him, and his second wife cheated on him. MW talked about how he planted cameras on his wife. This is important to remember. MW talked about how he planted cameras on his wife so she didn't know, and how he recorded her phone calls in order to catch her cheating. MW also stated her family does not care for him. MW talked about not going to her family functions, but would also say how he paid for a nice expensive hotel room when they came to visit, and how he bought his father-in-law awesome gifts for holidays. He never talked about his mother-in-law. MW never discussed the women in her family except in a passing manner. I didn't notice this until it was towards the end of our relationship. MW talked about how evil his mother is and how he compared his mother to mine. MW would compare my daughter to his wife and mother and how evil they are. It was all a manipulation tactic. I was missing my children and my life I had with my husband by this time and couldn't see what was really going on. Jeremiah, Alyssa and Ben's biological father, came into their lives no thanks to my mother, who is a narcissist, who told Alyssa about him without my permission. Jeremiah came to Colorado to visit Alyssa and to attend another court hearing for the sexual assault. MW became very jealous and did not want me alone with Jeremiah. Jeremiah, Alyssa, and her boyfriend came to the house to grab a box of Ben's things to take back to Iowa. MW was irate that Jeremiah was at our house. MW became very angry, said very mean things, and threatened to leave. MW packed a bag and then sat in my desk chair smoking cigarettes while I sat in my son's room crying and pleading with him. MW said I was a horrible, selfish cunt and that he wanted nothing more to do with me. I then told him to leave if that's what he wanted. MW did not move from the chair, but continued to text me saying he was done with me and did not want to see me again. This went on almost all night long. This was also a work night and had to get up early. I was beyond exhausted. This would be the beginning of many, many fights that he would call me very cruel names and started saying that I was crazy, insane, and that I lacked common sense. MW continued his bad-mouthing of my family members. Sometime between September and October of 2017, MW ended up in the emergency room. Allie went with us as she was generally concerned about what was going on. She has a huge heart and cares about people deeply. MW was told he had some polyps in his digestive tract. This is very, very important to remember.
Mm-hmm.
And needed to see a specialist. While MW was in the ER, they gave him morphine and he started talking about people being very racist and rude towards different races. MW had told me he is African American and Puerto Rican, along with Chinese, Irish, etc. So for him to make comments about other races and ethnic groups was very concerning. MW chalked it up as being high on morphine. Allie and I laughed at him because we didn't know what else to say or do. This was the only time I ever saw MW being nice to Allie. After all MW had said and done to Allie at this point, she still came to the hospital with us to make sure I was okay and that MW was being treated accordingly. MW commented over the next few days how he didn't care for Allie being there, didn't want her there, and felt it was inappropriate for having her been there. This was the first of several times MW was in the hospital during our time together. He even made rude comments about me having had to take him to the hospital. I told him it is what people do who care about each other, but he refused to listen to what I had to say. MW said I should have not taken him, but he had asked me to, and he was too sick and in a lot of pain. I told him several times over the course of several days that I was very concerned for him and he wouldn't go to the doctor and told me not to worry about it. During this time frame, MW started complaining about Peter, my lab mix dog.
Okay.
I need a moment. Started complaining about him going to the bathroom all over the yard and having to let him outside. MW even made comments about fearing Peter would hurt his daughter. I informed MW that Peter was raised with my two children who were toddlers when Peter came to live with us. Peter was only about 6 months old when I inherited him from my brother. By October 2017, when I had all but stopped talking to everyone around me, MW started spending less time with me and more time with his wife and daughter. Every night he was with them after work and most weekends. Once or twice a week, he would take me to dinner or a movie. I was feeling very alone. I started shopping and spending time with friends and seeing Allie when she wasn't so angry with me, but we would always fight, as she was a 17-year-old trying to explain how evil MW is in her words. I wasn't listening, I couldn't. I was selfish and in my own world at that time, trying to deal with all the chaos, havoc, and mess that had occurred, and trying to find something normal. My normal was going to get even worse. 2017, I was in and out of the courthouse filing divorce papers, making phone calls to local PD in Iowa, trying to find Jesse to have him served, trying to figure out how to get a divorce so that I wasn't living in sin. My religious views were skewed. MW made it clear he was an atheist and wasn't about religion, but his daughter was enrolled in a religious school where his wife worked. Things were just not adding upright, but I still didn't really notice. MW would tell me to go on the town without him. I would text him my whereabouts, or he would text me and ask where I was. I would spend a lot of time window shopping or going to stores I had not been in for years due to Jesse not liking to shop and not having money to shop. It was all manipulation and control. This is where the controlling behaviors started. During this time frame, MW's mental and emotional abuse increased greatly. November 2017 is when the financial abuse started. MW's Aztek stopped running, and he did not take very good care of his vehicles. MW started using my Ford Explorer that was in the best condition, and it was a very old vehicle itself. MW would drive us to work in it, then drive me home. We lived in the middle of nowhere in Ellicott, and drove back to the Springs to see his wife and daughter. It was 15 to 20 miles east of Colorado Springs and took 30 to 45 minutes most days to drive it. MW did not continue the maintenance on the vehicle, and it started having serious issues by December of 2017. MW had another vehicle that he shared with his wife. That was also not running. Halloween and Thanksgiving were without my children, and I was severely depressed about that. Luckily, we worked on Thanksgiving, and it kept my mind off not being with my children. The weekend of Veterans Day, MW and I went to work on Friday, and that night he dropped me off at home and went to see his wife and daughter. He returned late around 10 or 11. He got up early on Saturday around 7 or 8 and left to spend the day with his wife and daughter, and did not return until around 11 p.m. Then he again woke early on Sunday and left immediately to spend the day with his wife and daughter, and did not return until around 7 or 8. This entire time, he had my only vehicle, leaving me stranded in Ellicott without transportation to go anywhere. Sunday night when he got home, I had already started looking into moving out of state. I was tired of being taken advantage of, or so that was what I thought. But in reality, this was the beginning of his financial, mental, and emotional abuse towards me. Sunday night, he wanted to take me to a movie. I said, sure. So he chose the movie It, which he knows I am not at all a fan of scary, terrifying horror movies. MW picked the late show that started around midnight. We had to work the next day, getting up around 6. I was not amused, but was tired of being stuck at home, so I agreed to go. I chose to not watch the majority of the movie due to not liking it or wanting to see it. We did not get home until after 3 a.m. and had to get up at 6. My body was starting to feel the effects of exhaustion. Allie had several situations that required her to be committed for her PTSD and anxiety. MW always complained about how he wasn't getting any sleep and that the system was failing her. But then in the same breath would complain about Allie being out of control or a horrible person. On a few occasions, we were up most of the night with Allie in hospitals. I was very concerned about her mental health, as she was seeming to deteriorate after each court hearing and seeing her abuser. I was overwhelmed with it and couldn't imagine how she felt. MW would complain about all the court hearings and how he was missing work for it. I felt I had to explain why I was going to court for her, and how as her mother she needed me and my support. MW would not agree or see why. He complained about the system, but would also say how she deserved it and how she needed to pull her big girl pants up. I would reiterate to him that I hope that his daughter never had to go through something like this, as he would not be a good father or support parent for her. He would then twist my words and say that I was mean towards his daughter and that I was saying horrible things about her. I would say, no, I'm not, I'm not saying bad things about you as a parent. I am saying bad things about you as a parent. I expressed my thoughts and feelings towards him, towards not seeing my children, and he would disregard them, saying he doesn't see his sons who live in Puerto Rico either. I said many times that was his choice. My children not being with me was not my choice, and that I missed them. I had never been without them, not even one day since they were born. I was miserable without them. I cried myself to sleep every night. I was so sad and so upset over the entire situation. MW would downplay my emotions. He would say that they are adults. They were 16 and 17, and I would remind him of that. But he would say still they are adults. They can make their own decisions. If they wanted to be with you, they would be here. I was believing what he was saying. It seemed logical to me, but something deep down told me it wasn't true. MW would state that he felt bad for leaving me at home alone and wished my kids were around for me to spend the holidays with. But within that same conversation, he would then make statements about how they don't care about me. They are selfish and rude. MW would then start in about how horrible Allie is. I had told MW many times that Allie was not like this prior to the sexual assault, and that we lived in Iowa. She was a very bright, happy, friendly, loving child. He continued with the horrible things, calling her crazy, selfish, spoiled brat. I again would remind him of the PTSD. December 2017. He started driving his wife's Cougar. I finally get to see Alyssa. She was hurt by him at this point. He started controlling who I would communicate with and what I was allowed to communicate. He would make comments about my Facebook posts and get upset if I posted anything about my personal thoughts or feelings. He would make comments about my family not needing to know what I am doing. He was successful at alienating me from everyone. The final court hearing for Allie's sexual assault case, he came with us. Jeremiah came back for it. MW was very upset about Jeremiah being there. MW wouldn't leave me even to go see his daughter and wife in fear I would see Allie and Jeremiah without him. MW didn't want me to spend too much time on each other for Christmas as we were going to Las Vegas in January as a friend of his is getting married. I did buy him a nice Rolex watch. He got angry. He got me a sweater and some knickknacks from Wish. January 2018. We go to Las Vegas. We took my vehicle. I paid for the gas and the food. I paid for the souvenirs. He paid for the hotel room. Allie called me. She was sick. I told him that she was sick, and he said, well, there isn't much you can do about it. You aren't there. And he was so cold and callous about it. I was apologetic and told Allie to go to the hospital and have them call me or to wait until I got back the next night. He started a fight with me while in Las Vegas, so I locked myself in the bathroom and took a hot bath. After about a half an hour, he knocks on the door and wants to not fight. No apology. I just let it go. He started another fight with me a few hours later. I just wanted to walk the strip, but didn't realize how far of a walk it was and had to call for a lift. He got angry. I spent that money and that I should have known how far of a walk it was and that I shouldn't have worn my boots. I didn't speak to him for several hours. He then started joking with me in order to have sex that night. I again let it go. I didn't want to ruin my time in Vegas, but I felt so dirty. He continues to make negative comments about my daughter and family. His Cougar died after we got back, so we were back to sharing my vehicle. He would again take it and leave me stranded, and again it was hard for me to see Alyssa. February 2018, I get my taxes so I could get a vehicle. Matthew was on the lease now, and all bills were still in my name. March 2018, I start to look for a vehicle and found a Mercedes. It had some issues, so I continued looking. I took his daughter shopping at the mall while he was in another store dealing with his cell phone. I bought her a lot of clothes she picked out, so she had nice clothes to wear at our house. He said I would throw this in his face and he would pay me back. He never paid me back and brought this up multiple times during our fights. We drove back to Iowa to pick up Ben. This would be the first time he would meet my parents. My parents were aware of the things he had said and done to Allie, and my father said to him to stay away from my granddaughter. My mother said, I hope your daughter doesn't endure someone like you. He was quite shaken and upset about this. Ben said things like, don't let it bother you. While Ben was visiting for 2 weeks, MW would start fights with me, and on one occasion we were going to take Ben to Dave & Buster's, but while we were driving through the Springs, he started a fight with me, turned the vehicle around, and went home. No clue why the fight, he wouldn't tell me, so Ben and I left and went for a drive to find something to do in the Springs. When Allie came to see Ben, MW did not let her on our property. So he said she couldn't come in or even on the property. He made it difficult for Allie and Ben to see each other. 2018, my divorce is final. I buy the Mercedes. I had not allowed food or drinks in my new Mercedes. However, he bought his daughter food and drinks and let her have it in my vehicle. I told him if she makes a mess, I want the vehicle cleaned professionally. I don't want the vehicle ruined, especially if it's not by me. He started a huge fight over this. He started becoming very angry and started fights with me, calling me names and continuing his negativity towards my daughter and family. I couldn't get MW to tell me why he was angry. I left on several occasions as I couldn't handle being in the house with him due to the magnitude of negative comments, yelling, and name calling, even when his daughter was in the house. I found out I was pregnant. I was scared, as I had been on some medications that can cause serious birth defects and death. MW didn't show any emotion when I told him. He wasn't excited or upset, just flat-faced. I got doctor appointments set up and would beg MW to go with me. I didn't have anyone else. May 18. I was getting much sicker. I was let go from my job due to being pregnant. I started a lawsuit against them. MW kept telling me what to do in order to get the lawsuit going. He would use me losing my job against me, saying I deserved it. I got a new job. I told Allie I was pregnant. She was not happy. She was upset and cried and moved to Iowa to be with my family. She had been so hurt by my actions and MW's behaviors and words. June 2018. This is where the name calling got worse. I was a pig. I was a bitch. I was a cunt. I was stupid. He started calling me cuckoo. He would send me cuckoo clocks in text messages. I started working third shift. I was getting sicker every month during the pregnancy. He was getting angry that I was missing work and having so many trips to the hospital. July 2018, he started making comments about me being sick and fighting with me. My Mercedes stopped working, so I was looking for another vehicle. MW refused to get a vehicle or to fix the one he had that was with his wife. August 18, I got another vehicle, making outrageous payments. He didn't help with the payments or insurance, but he would sure take my vehicle to work, appointments, to get his daughter. He even took my vehicle into Denver and went through a toll and denies it. I still get the bills for the toll. I was in the hospital more frequently, missing lots of work. He held a baby shower for me, inviting whom he wanted. I had to return the car I was buying as I wasn't working much and couldn't afford it. He never offered to help pay for it, but would drive it, or my other vehicle. I found out Tins had moved out of state. He was very sick with cancer and moved to be with his son. MW didn't understand why I was upset about this. I got hurt trying to catch my little dog Kika and hurt my groin muscle. I started physical therapy. MW was upset that I had to go to more doctor's appointments as he was missing work due to having only one vehicle. October 18, I was very sick, put on bed rest. He continued to make derogatory comments about me to mutual friends who told him to stop. MW would fight with me about going to the hospital when he had his daughter. I told him I couldn't help when I get sick. He wouldn't understand that. November 18, I had to do urine catches, blood pressures twice a week, blood work every week. I was very sick. MW still would get upset if I would go to the hospital. On one occasion, I had to be taken by ambulance to the hospital, and he was upset. They kept me overnight. He was upset he was going to miss work. MW was moved onto my cell phone plan late November, early December of 2018. I was going to the doctor twice a week, urine catches, blood work, blood pressure checks more frequently. MW continued to be more irritated with me and get upset about missing work. I was put in the hospital on December 5th, 2018 to be induced 5 weeks early. Dog, St. Peter, I had for 12 years.
Go ahead.
I had Peter for 12 years. He fed him antifreeze. He was found by my landlords. Sophia was born December 6th at 8:48 a.m. and taken to NICU. I was released on December 7th, went home around 1 a.m., hugged Peter, who was lying on the kitchen floor. I cried hysterically. MW grabbed me and pushed me into the bedroom and told me to go to bed. I was readmitted into the hospital on December 8th and put on the mag drip. If you don't know what the mag drip is, it's supposed to be royal hell. You're supposed to be having diarrhea and throwing up and dizzy, and I had none of it. MW sent me a text upset he had to bury Peter and threatened to come after my family. I spent every day in the NICU. I even begged the doctor to let me see Fia. She did. I was wheeled up to the NICU with my mag drip attached. I was released on December 9th. I immediately went to the NICU. MW had my vehicle and was going to see his daughter and wife every day and going to work. He didn't spend much time at the hospital with us. Sophia was released on December 12th. MW was late picking us up. He had my vehicle. While at home, MW would not help me with Sophia, and I was still very sick with preeclampsia. MW would sleep in his daughter's room so he wouldn't be awakened by Sophia's cries. I had to beg him to help me. On one occasion, I was very sick. I had Sophia in my arms, and I couldn't wake him up yelling his name. And I didn't want to wake Audrey, so I nudged him with my foot as he was asleep on the floor. He woke up and started yelling at me for kicking him and that it hurt. I said, I barely touched you. I can't bend over. I am dizzy and I have Sophia in my arms. I don't feel good and need help. MW continued to fight with me and didn't help me, so I left the room and went and got Sophia her bottle and changed her and went to bed. MW the next morning continued his fight with me. The fight ended up lasting several days. He started making rude comments, name calling, called me a fat pig for eating before him or without him. I made Sophia's doctor's appointments, made sure he was aware so that my vehicle would be used for Sophia and not what he wanted it for. MW still refused to get his own, still using and abusing mine. He didn't do any maintenance on my vehicles. I was still very sick during this time. MW's anger continued to escalate, threatening to leave us, etc. MW refused to get insurance on Sophia, so I made sure she had insurance in WIC. I supplied everything for her. I used any money I had for diapers, wipes, etc. For Xmas, MW bought Audrey a ton of presents, as did I. MW only bought Sophia a onesie and a stuffed animal. I bought her a book, a toy, and a stocking. MW didn't even invite me to spend Christmas with him and Audrey, even though it was at our house. She opened all of her presents, even the ones from me, without me being there. MW didn't even wrap Sophia's presents he got her. MW played with Audrey and would only hold Sophia when I begged him to, or begged him to help me due to me not being well, which half the time he wouldn't. January 2019, we found out we had to move, and MW became very upset. He blamed me for having to move. He continued to threaten to leave me and Sophia. He threatened to take her from me. He continued calling me names and fighting, and wouldn't tell me why he was even mad. My best friend Brooke came back to visit and to see Sophia. We were packing and looking for a house. Late January, we found a house, and February, we were moving. He continued his fights with me, calling me all sorts of names, never telling me why he was even angry. February, while moving, The name calling, yelling, and screaming at me. He quit his job thinking he had another job, but he never went and did the fingerprints, and instead blamed me for not getting his fingerprints done. He had me put all the utilities in my name. All the bills were in my name, except for the lease, which was in both our names. I had a hysterectomy. I had started iron infusions. I was still very sick in and out of the hospital. Just the next day after my hysterectomy, MW had me go to the DMV to get my tags updated on my vehicle, as he had gotten pulled over for expired tags. He was the one driving my vehicle 90% of the time. MW refused to help me financially with any of Sophia's needs. March and April, I went to TESSA, which is the DV advocates in Colorado. Due to the constant fighting with MW, they wrote a letter to my landlord. MW threatened to move out and leave me and Sophia. When I threatened to move, he threatened to sue me. MW was job hunting and not working. He went to Denver for a job interview with Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. He did his integrity interview and was told he didn't get the job. MW blamed me for not getting this job. So I got him a job where I work. Someone called law enforcement stating I was suicidal. The cops, an ambulance, and a fire truck showed up at my house while Sophia and I were sleeping. I was very sick. I told them I had no idea what was going on. MW blamed my family, of course, especially naming Allie and my mother. MW then said it was because of that is why he didn't get the Jefferson County job. He started working third shift at my same job. He was using my vehicle. I went back to work end of March, early April. He refused to help me financially still. I was talking with Tessa frequently. His anger was escalating, continuing with the threats and name calling, and refusing to help me financially with Sophia. May 2018. I ended up in the hospital on May 7th. I had to have emergency life-saving surgery to remove a tumor in 80% of my colon. I have cancer. Late stage 3 colon cancer. I was in the hospital for 9 days. The day after surgery, MW started a fight with me. He wasn't there for surgery, even when I asked for him to bring Sophia to see me. He didn't. I was alone. When my aunt came to see me, he got angry. When my cousin sent me flowers, he got angry fighting with me. He would bring Sophia to see me to make a good impression to the hospital staff, but would fight with me in my room. He got very angry when my ex-husband called me. He started a huge fight with me in the hospital about this. MW set up a GoFundMe page. He kept all the money, over $400. I reported it. The day I was released, he started a fight with me, leaving me to pack all my stuff and getting myself dressed and waiting for him by the door as he took off with Sophia. I just sat there and cried. MW had his daughter Audrey over the day I came home from the hospital. I was still very sick and sore as my entire abdomen was stapled, closed. I was still very sick, throwing up. A week later, when my daughter arrived from Iowa, he pulled out a gun with Sophia and Audrey in the home, called the cops. This was the first of many times the cops would be called. MW moved out, leaving me and Sophia. My parents arrived a week later. While in the hospital, I had called my parents, who were in Florida, and my mother told me that they were not canceling their vacation to come see me. MW started making up lies to the cops. I am putting a hit out on him or trying to have him killed. MW refused to help me financially with any of Sophia's needs. June of 19, I had my port put in and started chemo and started my new job at DHS. MW continued to call the cops, making up lies about my family. He told the cops that my dad had a gun. He did not, as he had flown.
Right.
Even if he did, he's a cop. He can carry.
Right.
Huh. MW would show up unannounced. MW wouldn't take any of his belongings. He would set a time to see Sophia and then show up late and only stayed 30 to 45 minutes at a time. MW walked into my room once when my parents left to go to Walmart. He walked straight into my bedroom where Sophia and I were sleeping. I texted my parents, but he left before they got there. We found listening devices, cell phones with recording devices, a GPS in the home, and Sophia's diaper bag, while at Fat Sully's having a family dinner. I also found GPS in my vehicle. I went to Tessa and got a TPO and an attorney through Tessa. I was continuing to work and go to chemo and doctor appointments. MW refused to help me financially still with any of Sophia's needs. 2019, the restraining order was denied by judge, but judge told him to contact me only through the Talking Parents app, which he did not sign up for. I have emails. MW refused to help me financially with any of Sophia's needs. August of 19, still not helping me with Sophia. When I said I needed help with daycare costs, he said, I will take her while you were at work. He refused to tell me where he was taking her or who she was around. MW somehow sliced open Sophia's abdomen, and when I asked him about it, he said, oh, I must have cut it with my fingernail. He didn't ask how she is or if she was in pain, nothing, not even any remorse in his voice. He would return Sophia in very wet diapers with diaper rashes and soaked clothing every time. I finally stopped him seeing her as her behaviors and attitude would change significantly after spending time with him. She was fearful, anxious, unable to sleep, crying more. After 8 days of this, I stopped it. MW called DHS on me. Had some of his female friends who work for DHS make up false reports and claims. Here's the flying monkeys. People who were never in my home or near me or near Sophia that I know of. I made sure DHS was aware of this. I had the emails. I finally couldn't take it anymore. I was unable to make ends meet. I couldn't pay bills. My family and friends were in fear that we would be harmed by MW as his tactics were increasingly becoming worse and more worrisome. My cousin and uncle and friend came and moved us to Iowa, and I continued cancer treatment without missing any treatments. September of 19 in Iowa, Sophia is surrounded by loved ones. She gets to meet all of our family. We immediately get insurance, food stamps, and WIC, and we live with friends. And I meet with Waypoint for domestic violence here in Iowa. 2019, MW is mailing packages to my parents' house. They return them. They want nothing to do with him, as he is manipulative and a liar. He continues to mail things to my parents' house. They would continue to return them. Still going to chemo and doctor appointments. We're still living with friends in a different town than my parents. By November of 2019, I'm still continuing chemo and doctors. He's still sending things to my parents that they send back unopened. I am told by friends that Matthew posted, something about court on his Facebook page, and they sent me screenshots. I contact courts, I submit papers. I call him and ask to be civil, no go. Recorded conversation, him lying, saying, call cops, tell them where you are. Sophia gets sick. MRSA is found due to the cut MRSA is found due to the cut from him back in August. We start antibiotics, changing diapers every 2 hours and using Decidin with every diaper change. December, she is 1. We celebrate with a party surrounded by family and friends. No word from him, nothing sent to my parents, no card, nothing. She has her 1-year checkup, still going to doctors and chemo. Sophia is baptized. Brooke, Justin, Rhonda, and Gary are her godparents. We have a small party at the church. We're attending church now on Sundays with my uncle and Lacey. I am told I am cancer-free for the most part. I have my port removed and get doctor's appointments set up. I am placed in a study. I am set up for a colonoscopy to ensure all is clear. Appointment is in March. We are now living in a place by ourselves. We spend holidays with family and friends, and she gets lots of attention and presents. January of 20, still nothing from MW for Sophia. No cards, no gifts, nothing. I'm working on getting an attorney. I start counseling. I'm still going and working with Waypoint. February, we are still hiding from MW. We spend weeks without any contact with the outside world. We had our few people who would take us grocery shopping out of town in our small community. I was diagnosed with PTSD and anxiety. I finally have an attorney and we start meeting. May of 2020, we were supposed to have court. We complete mediation and in the best interest of child factors. Courts pushed back until October. During this time, MW would constantly post things about Sophia and how he missed her and how he was going to find her and give her a big hug. My supposed best friend who helped me move back sexually assaulted me, and then he contacted MW and then contacted my attorney and was threatening him. My attorney suggests I go to the police, but I was too afraid. MW contacted the FBI. The FBI contacted my local PD, and they informed my dad, who was a police officer in my hometown. They said, this is a civil matter, not for us. I continued to spend as much time with Sophia as possible, as I didn't know what our future would hold. 2020 went by pretty quickly. Still no word from MW. October 1st of 2020, Domestic Violence Month. We had court via video. I placed a sticky note over MW's picture. My grandma had gotten a hotel room for me so we could have court somewhere he wouldn't recognize. I was able to pick a background picture which would further disguise my whereabouts. The judge in my case saw through MW's games. The judge granted me almost everything I asked for, including agreeing with us that MW did kill Peter. He just didn't have enough evidence. I don't remember what it was called, but there was enough other evidence. Again, I can't remember the word he used to say that he did kill Peter. I was granted full custody. MW is to complete a DV eval with my input. He is to complete reintegration therapy with Sophia. He is to talk to me only through the Talking Parent app. He is to give me a 7-day notice as to when he wants to see Sophia. He is to come to us. He is to find an organization that will supervise the visits, which can only occur on the first and third weekends of the month, no overnights, and only from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. It was a miracle. This judge believed me. He believed my witnesses, and he saw MW for the narcissist that he is. The judge stated that he is to pay both retro child support and future support. The judge also informed MW that he cannot contest the orders from the judge, and he cannot drag us through any more court proceedings. The next day, MW posted on his Facebook page a video of him outside the courthouse with a poster calling out DHS, law enforcement, the judge by his name, and the court, stating he lost because he is Black. This was during the BLM movements, etc. MW only did this once for his Facebook audience. Sophia and I are finally free and able to move about society, but no thanks to the pandemic, we can't. And as of today, I still have not heard from him.
Thank
Wow.
God. I am so
Yeah.
thankful for that judge.
Yes.
That judge saw through the BS.
Yes.
Saw through all of the BS.
Yep.
I'm so thankful that you guys are doing good.
I actually left out a lot of stuff because we would be here another hour if I put everything in there. I mean, it was ridiculous.
It was like, what's that for real? You know, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
how can one person endure all of that? But you did it.
But you did.
And you
Yeah.
here to tell a story.
Yep.
Yeah.
Here to tell your story, which is a damn good story. So how is your daughter now, the one that was raped? How are your relationship now?
We're very close again. We're getting back
So
to where we
glad.
were. We
How
talk
is she
almost
doing
every
with
day.
that?
Huh?
How is she doing with the rape? What happened with the guy? Did he ever go to jail or anything?
He got, no joke, a slap on the wrist and 30 days in jail, work release.
But he was already had an open case already against him.
Right. Right.
So how is she doing? How is she doing mentally and physically?
Like right now, she is awesome. She is living with the awesome boyfriend. She's got a great job in a child care facility. She is loving life.
How
She
is baby?
is awesome.
How is baby
Good.
Sophie doing?
Oh my God, that little girl.
Mhm.
Oh, she is Spitfire. She is going to make, oh boy. She is she is very independent, and when you hear her, you're like, there's no way she's two.
Mhm.
Like all of my family is like, what are you gonna do when she goes to school? Because she is gonna be bored stiff.
Yes.
Mhm.
I'm like, I don't know. My cousin, whose son is just a few months older than Sophia, she actually has to tell me what he's saying. Because I'm like, what are you saying? And Sophia's like, Mom, he wants, you're two. You're two. How are you? You're supposed to be two, not
You
10.
is not supposed to be
Like,
an interpreter this early.
yeah, she is very independent. She is amazing. I
Good.
I can't get over how amazing she is. I mean, quite honestly, he's missing out on one hell of a kid.
Mhm.
She ain't missing him at all.
No,
She ain't missing
no,
him at all. She do not need
no,
that toxic
Mhm.
no.
shit in her life at all.
I didn't even put in there about my ex-husband showing back up and trying to adopt her, and like there's a whole nother chapter to this whole thing.
So, Christy, are you gonna write a book?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, I
Good.
am. I'm trying. My memory's not as good because chemo really
Yeah, you have
did a
chemo
number on
brain.
me.
Mhm.
My kids and my parents mostly try to bring back memories as much as they can with pictures and things, and I have no recollection of a lot of things, which is really frustrating for me because I know that they're wonderful moments and I wish I could remember them.
Right.
Mhm.
So there's a lot more damage done between the chemo and the PTSD. There's a whole span of time that I just don't remember a lot.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Like those first few months after the divorce, I drank myself into a stupor. I mean, I was drinking a full bottle of caramel vodka almost on a daily basis, throwing
Wow.
up in the shower, covered in puke. Like I was not mentally okay. And he took full advantage of that.
It's just
So
you know what's so crazy? It was like he was always around. He was always there when you and your friend have these conversations. So it was like you
so
had to study everything.
so part of what I didn't talk about was March of 2019, Tins passed away. We were
Yeah, that's what I
talking.
wanted to ask. What happened to Tans once he moved with his son?
So he moved with his son because his cancer was progressing, but he wasn't telling me that because he knew he was trying to get me and Sophia to come out to Washington, D.C. to be
Uh-huh.
with him and his family.
Mhm.
And because he was really worried about us, but he was too sick. And we were in the midst of texting back and forth like all day, every day. He ended up in the hospital on a Thursday, and we were texting back and forth, and he said, I think they're going to try and go in and relieve some of that fluid in my lung tomorrow morning, which was a Tuesday.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
I texted him, I said, well, I love you, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Found out on Thursday they didn't make it.
Mm.
And when I told him, W, he told me I needed to get over it. But then in the same breath, he said, well, I'm going to throw together a memorial for him with everybody from work. That was his Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde bullshit.
Yes.
And then during that same time, another good friend of mine from work, who actually was a good friend of his first, who ended up telling him to shove it because he was talking bad about me to her. And she was the one who got me to get through the jurisprudence and getting me into the mental health field at the prison. So she had pretty much told him to fuck off.
Right.
She found out she had breast cancer in January of 2019. March of 2019, Tins passes away. Another good friend of mine from ours from work, Alexandra, found out she had a tumor on the base of her head back here. That was inoperable cancer, and she passed away.
It was a facility? Do you think it was a facility that you guys were at?
No, my cancer, from what my first oncologist said, was my cancer was from the drug Embro. It's a biologic, like all the ones on TV. The damn thing's still on TV.
Okay, yeah.
So those cause cancer, more likely to cause lymphoma, but for some reason it attacked my colon.
Colon.
Yeah. So then June, Alexandra and I are talking back and forth, and she's getting worse. She's deteriorating pretty rapidly. And in between my port and chemo, she passed away.
Wow.
So a lot of things were happening around
all of that.
this. Yeah, there was a lot more to him. Like the neighbors, they were witnesses. My neighbors and landlords were witnesses to in my court hearing. They found the antifreeze, still puddles of antifreeze underneath the washer and dryer when we moved out a month later after Peter. And they believe that he was poisoning Peter on the nights I would go to work because I would come home and Peter would be sick. And I'm like, what the hell's going on with him? Then I would be home for a couple days and he'd be fine.
Right. And then when you leave, he's sick.
Yep.
So how did his wife, like, why was she still fooling with him? His ex-wife, why was she still having communications? Was she some kind of sicko too?
Because I think he was doing the same thing with her, threatening to take Audrey from her if she didn't follow his rules.
Oh, okay. So he was manipulating the whole.
Yeah, he was controlling the whole thing. So he was playing. It's like he was playing y'all against each other. He would lie and say whatever negative to her, and
there's video, or not video, but he recorded himself. He would come over to my place, and I heard those recordings because he submitted them in the restraining order. And it's him talking to himself and talking to his wife. And even talking to, I think somehow somebody, I don't know if he called the suicide hotline or somebody did, but the cops and everybody showed up at some hotel he was at, and he recorded that whole thing, including being on the phone with somebody at the same time that he's recording, talking to cops and fire. Oh, there's a whole, like.
This dude is crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
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 He needs to be locked up in the crazy house.
Right. Right. So he also claimed to have been in the military. So I give my mom his information and she does a background check. My dad does a background check. Of course, when my dad does a background check, the FBI wants to know why he's doing a background check.
Right.
So my dad told them, and they said, okay. Like, this is pretty serious, because when he started doing that, the FBI had already called because he had called them. So the FBI called and talked to one of my dad's coworkers, who they all have known me since I was like 4 years old.
Right.
They're like second dads to me. Okay. Yeah. I can do whatever the hell I want in this town, per se. And I just get like a don't do it again. you
Right.
know. So so the one officer calls my dad in, and they're good friends, and he's like, Rick, the FBI, he sent me an email. He contacted the FBI about Kristine and Sophia. He goes, I don't want to know where she is. Just let me know she's safe. And my dad said, she's safe. He goes, I'm not going to go looking for her, and I'm not going to let anybody else go looking for her.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because this dude is crazy, because he had been on my Facebook page. He saw all the bullshit. Like, he knew. He was at my wedding. And my husband my ex-husband went back into drugs. He was sober while we were together. Then he fell off the wagon. Now he's in trouble. He's in jail. He's looking at going to prison. It's a whole mess. Like, yeah.
I'm so glad you and Sophia are doing good. I'm happy that you and your daughter building your relationship
Well,
back.
so this thing with him is, while the one thing I didn't talk about was we had found mail that was addressed to someone with the same last name, different spelling of the first name, and a different initial. Same social security number. He owes, and I kid you not, and I don't know how, but he owes over $400,000 in back child support in Wisconsin on kids I don't even know about.
It's not his wife.
No.
Oh.
On top of that, so my mom and dad do background checks, and nothing. It's all lies. He was never, ever in the military. And that's why he wouldn't put Sophia on his TRICARE, because he couldn't. It was his wife who was in the military. Then he was never. It gets way worse. He was never a police officer. Everywhere that he lived, there was a sexual assault case.
So he never was tried for none of that?
Oh yeah. And he's even supposed to register. This man worked in the prison with me. Worked. Not
How
a
did he
prisoner.
get that job?
He lied. He had to have lied. He had to have changed something, because ain't no way. Ain't no way he could because the background checks that they do with all that mess, ain't no way. So something
So don't y'all have
either,
to do like background, psychiatrist,
yes.
all of that?
Right. Especially when you go to work in a prison.
Yeah.
Or a mental health facility like I worked in and got him a job at. I don't know. The only job that he was supposed to do a fingerprint at was for working with at-risk kids.
Right.
That was the job where he missed the fingerprint time slot that he was supposed to go to.
Even go to that fingerprint thing? He
No.
knew he wasn't. He probably never went because
No.
he know he couldn't get the job.
Right.
Right. So he made up some fictitious lie to me that I later found out was that he could go anytime on Saturday to get it. The place wasn't open on Saturday. He drugged me all around that damn place looking for the place. I found it. I saw the hours on it, and they're closed on Saturday and Sunday.
I'm so glad you got rid of him. Like,
yes,
he was a piece of work. He was a piece of work. So what's life now for you? Like right now, today, what's life is right now for you?
So I am actually applying for disability. I have my court hearing in December because since prior to cancer, I had significant psoriatic arthritis and psoriasis. Then chemo came and not only intensified those, where I have lost another damn toenail to psoriasis. I'm down to 8 toenails. I told my podiatrist, you're about to be out of a job. It got bad. And so my arthritis, and now I have fibromyalgia. I have what they call drug-induced neuropathy. I have neuropathy in my ears where there are times I can't hear, or I have significant ringing. I have neuropathy in my eyes. I don't feel any of this. I don't feel anything. which took me a long time to get over because I'll never again feel the touch of my children.
Right.
Ever.
Mm-hmm.
Even my lips, I don't, there's nothing there. Nothing. So, and then I have what they now diagnosed me with restless leg syndrome, and I told them that I'm done seeing all of them because every time I show up, they throw some other shit on me and I'm done. So I also have a broken wrist. I've had it for, they think I've possibly broke it during chemo, probably during the move. The bone will not heal, so now I have to see a specialist for that.
Mm-hmm.
But you still
So
alive.
I'm alive and I'm here, and as you can see, we have decorated our tree with spiders and spider webs because
Yeah.
Not the only one like a tree all year round.
I want to put up my tree too, but you know.
well, I had help. That's why the tree is up. I get it while I got it. So
Right.
that's why the tree is up so early and why it's decorated with Halloween, because we do what we got to do around here.
Right.
But that's life for us.
Christina, before we close out,
Mm-hmm.
what are some lasting words that you may have a female, a lady, or a guy right now listening to the show? What are some words that you have for them to either leave or start preparing for leave in this situation?
Trust your gut,
Mm-hmm.
because that is the most powerful thing that will tell you something isn't right. And when that little thing starts going off, you run
Mm-hmm.
because it's right.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many times in my story I said I felt something wasn't right and I ignored it. I'm lucky to be here and I'm lucky to share my story. I'm lucky on multiple levels that I'm still here. God obviously wants me on this earth for something, because he could have taken me out a few times.
Yeah.
So that one thing I got to say is that gut feeling when it starts acting up, you need to run, because that's your body's way of saying that that other person's vibes are negative. Their aura is negative. They're what they're about to do is against everything that you stand for.
Right.
Because they're about to just bring you down, and you gotta run. Boy, I wish I would have listened to that baby in the beginning.
Yeah, that's a
So
fact. That's a fact.
yeah,
That is a fact.
that thing, I never believed in it until, well, it was pretty apparent on numerous occasions.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Just run.
trust your
Run,
gut.
run for the hills.
Yep.
So I want to say thank you, Christina, so much. I want to say thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being strong. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
for just never giving up, because at any moment in between all of that, you could have gave up and said, I'm just done with this. I can't take it. It could have been several times that you could have off yourself and said, this is just enough. This is just
Yep.
too much.
Yep.
I'm thankful that you didn't give up and you kept on in the fight and said,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do this, and one way or another, I'm getting out of this situation. I'm so thankful. So I wish you and baby Sophie the success of everything, like
Thank you.
to the moon and back. And I'm just thankful because
Yes.
I seen this going many a ways. Like, how she
Yeah.
here? And it takes me
Yes.
back to um just what a couple of days ago, and I want to say that was Saturday. I was telling Kim about, right now I'm facing my storms, and I was telling Kim that I'm tired of fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And listening to your story just makes me, I gotta keep fighting no matter how hard
Mm-hmm.
times get and how
Yep.
tough times is, that you have to keep fighting, and there's a reason.
Right.
And like just listening to it and listening to me just sobbing and crying because I just have to, put my mom in the nursing home because she's getting
Oh,
ill, and I'm like, I've been fighting and fighting and fighting, and listen to you, like, you knew the rainbow. Some at the end of that rainbow was a pot of gold, and you kept on fighting, but you
Yep.
never
right.
gave up, and it
No.
makes me want to
Right.
keep fighting
I,
the fight, no matter how hard it get.
Yep.
Oh, there were plenty of days, honey, that I was saying, I can't do this, I can't do this, you know? And at the end of the day, I turned to the Bible, and I'll tell you what, for those several months we were alone, I had, I don't know how many Bibles from how many different religions, and I would just sit down and read. And then I would read it on my phone, and I would read it in the books, and I'm just praying out loud to God and Jesus, the Holy Ghost. I mean, I'm praying out loud like all the time, and I'm like, God, give me the strength. Like, I don't know where it's going to come from tomorrow, God, but I need you. And by golly, there are days, honey, I don't know. I don't know how I got through it. I honestly don't, because I told everybody, I said, if I have to turn Sophia over to him, her and I are taking off for Mexico,
Yep.
because I'm not handing him over to her.
Right, and that just give me the fight. Like, I just was crying and telling Kim, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. Like, I'm just really, but listening to your
Right,
story, even though it's a different situation, but it's still that fight. So
right,
you give me courage to keep fighting, no matter how hard times get. That
right.
it's the light, it's that pot of gold at the end of that tunnel. So thank you for just even sharing your story. And if it don't motivate nobody else to keep fighting, it motivate me to keep fighting
Thank
and
you.
keep going.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, I want to get my story out there so I can help other people, so I can get them to see, because what he did through that whole thing, it, if someone else can see it and be like, holy shit, that's me right now,
Right.
to
Right.
get out. You know, if I can save a life, if
Yep.
I can just save one life,
One life. Yep.
then I know that what I was here to do.
Yep.
You know,
And that's me. You touch me on the fighting part. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
was just like literally just crying in Saturday. I want to say, just telling Kim, I'm so tired of fighting. I just been fighting. I
right,
had asthma. I was diagnosed with asthma at 6 months. I stopped breathing on my mama twice. I had a blood transfusion. Like, it's just the fighting and listening. Like, you never gave up. So it's
right.
it touched me to just keep fighting the
Oh, I
fight.
forgot I have COPD now too. So they keep throwing things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Sister Kim, you have anything before we check out?
I again, like she said, I'm thankful that you didn't give up, because I'm sitting here like with my mouth open, like I just didn't have no words. Like I'm speechless. Usually I have a question. I ain't had no question because I didn't know what to ask, Lord, because it was for one person, and it's like that's just one person,
Right.
Right,
one person, and it didn't stop you. You kept going. So
right,
you are what we look for in a survivor, because that's you, and you're
right,
still fighting to this day.
right.
Thankfully, you don't have, you're cancer free right now. So thankfully, he is not, trying to reach out to you or nothing. So you and little Sophie can just mind your business and leave others alone.
You know,
I'm thankful for that.
right? You know, I told everybody after I beat cancer, I said, you know, I can do this again, but I don't want to do that with him again. I
Right.
said, God, if it comes down to it, give me cancer again, because I don't want to deal with that again, ever.
Right.
You
That
know,
is
I
a
mean,
piece of work.
if I could choose my battle, this is the battle I choose. So,
Exactly.
you know, I hope that, especially after I write my book, where I put it all in there, I'm going to piss off a whole lot of people when I write that book. Let me tell you.
And you gotta
So,
keep us posted when the book come out, because
Yep.
we need that. Like, and it's support a promotion that we can do to help you push the book. Like, let us
thank
know.
you. I will. Yeah, I'm just, as you can tell, I'm just in the beginning stages of trying to get all my thoughts together.
Right, and don't
Um,
rush it. Just let it come natural and just let it flow, because
Yep.
it's gotta touch somebody. And with this
right.
show, you just telling it right now, and you just give us just a little tip of the ice with it. So I'm thankful. I'm so glad. So I just want to say thank you for taking time out your busy day to even sharing your story with us. And everybody, as Kristine said, ladies, run. When you start feeling that uncomfortable feeling, run. Don't second
Yep.
guess it. Don't nothing. Just leave.
Right.
Because it can get worse.
Yep.
It can be a life or death.
Yep.
You know, it was to that point. I think he would have killed us. There's no doubt in my mind. That's where we were headed. I don't know if you know the story of Kelsey Barath from Colorado, but our relationship mirrored hers and her perpetrator, and she was murdered.
Oh wow.
So my attorney, because that happened just 20 minutes up in the mountains from me, he used that in court. He's like, we don't need another Kelsey Barath. We don't need another Patrick Frazee, you know, like he used that in court. Cause he told me when I was meeting with him and he was reading all this, he said, holy shit. He goes, your case, cause his son's a police officer. So his son knew, you know, some of the background there before it was released. He said, your case is mirror. How her relationship was with him is how your relationship is with him. Yeah. So when that,
thank God.
right. So when that gut feeling happens, you gotta run like the wind.
Yep.
So thanks so much, Kristine.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I greatly appreciate this opportunity.
No problem. And we want to thank everybody from tuning in to Wind Down Fridays will Give a Sister a Hug. I'm your girl, Author Erica. I have my fabulous co-host, Author Kim, and our good sister, Kristine, with us. Y'all have a great day and take care. Peace.
Yep.